This is the Next Bite of Life podcast, the place to be to hear personal stories from expats, digital nomads, and everybody else taking their next bite of life. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Next Bite of Life podcast. My guest today is Lee, a guy who just moved here a few months ago, and he lives in Valencia now. So say hello to everyone, Lee.
Hello, everyone.
So Lee, I know, how long have you been in Valencia now?
I arrived the first week in April, so it's been about 7 months now.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you have a lot to say, and you can actually tell us a little bit more than somebody who's just been here for a visit. Now, the first question I have for you is, how did you get here? How did Valencia come into play?
Yeah, once I decided to leave the U.S., which was that's a whole other conversation. I started to research, other places I might want to go, and whenever I'd read these lists, like from AARP or International Living, Valencia was always at or near the top of the list as far as affordability and livability. And I confess I had never set foot in Valencia before I decided to move here. So.
Was there a fear factor involved in there?
Oh yeah, but there's a fear factor in, whatever decision you made. But ultimately, I just decided, I've been retired and needed a little adventure and a change of scenery. And, I would start in Valencia. I just to check it out, see if I liked it. And I'm still here 7 months later.
And how long was that decision from like trying to say, I want to go move to Valencia and then actually being here? How long did you think about it and do it?
I would say a few months. It wasn't a terribly long
that's not long
process.
At all.
Yeah. And then, I was, there's the whole visa process, which actually went pretty smoothly for me compared to other people I've spoken to about that. So it went.
Well, you were living in LA, so I think the consulate that the LA people deal with is a lot easier than some of the other ones I've heard. So you were lucky in that regard. So
yeah, I found that out later because they could not have been more helpful and efficient. But I've talked to other people from other consulates, and I hear all these horror stories about just how bureaucratic and frustrating it is. So things went pretty quickly for me.
That's great. Now, I got to ask you this. I know that Valencia, what other places did you think about? I know Valencia wasn't your first choice. So were there other countries or cities that you thought about before?
Yeah, my original choice was Costa Rica. And I visited there, several times, and I came to like it, and I still do. But ultimately, I decided I'm really a city person, and I needed things that a real city has to offer, just in terms of culture and infrastructure. And not that Costa Rica doesn't have that, but I like going to museums and cinema and live music and things like that. It's just a lot easier to find. It's like being in real, it is being in a real city. So that suits my personality a bit more, I think.
Okay. Now, you moved here and you hadn't been here before, and you just said, okay, I'm going to pack my suitcases and here I am. I'm going to go to Valencia. So what were your first impressions? Like, what did that feel like when you got here?
It was interesting because one of the factors in selecting Valencia, because I'm from Southern California, so I'm spoiled with the climate there. And one of the attractions of Valencia was the climate and the fact that it's a coastal city. So I got here and it was cold and wet and rainy. So I thought,
so we like to say you brought it with you.
I did. I take full responsibility.
You went by way of San Francisco and then came here.
Yeah.
So you questioned that for a while.
Yeah, and then my original plan once I got here was to spend a month in Valencia, then move on to Alicante and spend a month there and see which one I like better. But once I got to Valencia and started to meet people, and then I said, yeah, okay, I'm good for a
Really?
while. So yeah,
Wow, that's great because I visit a lot of people and I talk to a lot of people who they have problems like committing to someplace, and it's like, what if there's something better? They're always looking for something. But I'm like, you need to like
yeah,
just see what works for you. And sometimes you just know when you get there, and sometimes you don't. And so it's okay to keep on moving. But
yeah, because you can do all the research in the world and read all the books and watch all the YouTube videos and
yeah.
stuff, but you really don't know until you get there. And
Yeah.
once I got there, I felt comfortable immediately.
Oh,
So it was
that's
great.
good. Now, the you mentioned, you said to meet people. Now, have you found that it's been easier to make friends? Have you made friends since you got here?
I have, and that was my biggest fear in coming here. It's like, what if I don't connect with people? Because my greatest fear in the world is being socially isolated.
Hmm.
And almost from, I would say within a week or two after arriving here, I started to meet people, other expats, and uh, that really just made it. I became more comfortable with my decision because of that. Because, like I said, that was the one thing I was really worried about, especially with my limited Spanish. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
yeah, but it was great, and it happened pretty quickly because you find that when you're here as an expat, there are lots of other expats who are looking for the same connection. So it's easy to reach out, and there are lots of
Exactly.
platforms to do that. So
Yeah. I know it's a nice soft landing. And one thing I always tell people, sometimes people write me and go, I really want to live in a finca away from every place else. I want to be by myself. And I'm like, it sounds great. And you can understand it because you've had such a hectic life and you want to decompress. But when you get
yeah,
there, now there's no neighbors that speak English. You don't speak any Spanish. I mean, everything is like, and then of course, within a few months, you're just like, I hate it. I don't want to be here, and so it kind of clouds your judgment. But you need that
yeah,
soft landing, be with
yeah,
people that,
yeah. That's when it really helps to be honest with yourself and self-aware. And I know that I am not a person who does well in isolation or when I'm not connected to people. So that was like my number one priority when I got here, was to figure out how to connect with people. And fortunately, it wound up being much easier than I thought.
see, that's what I tell people. It's like, don't, like, let that be a fear that's like way on the bottom, because everybody that's out here is out to do the same thing. And they were brave
Yeah,
enough to leave home and they're here and they want to meet people and you want to meet people. And it's a lot easier. And I find that most people really are nice people.
yeah, they
So,
really are. It's amazing.
yeah,
And
I know.
if
It's
you,
almost like they were picked and said, okay, all you good people go here. Now
and
there's
it's
some
great
bad ones.
because and you tend to run into people who are like-minded in that they are adventurous and want to
Yes,
have new experiences, and and somehow you find each other because we're all here in this one place together and trying to learn and navigate the whole experience, and it's great to have other people around you to help you do that.
that's
So
so good to hear because
yeah,
everybody's scared and they do this. So I always like to interview people who's been here, who can tell them, look, it's not as bad as you thought, and even though you had never visited, you got here and you're doing okay.
yeah, yep,
I know
great.
you're like the social butterfly. I'm like, Lee, oh, Lee's here somewhere. I'm like, oh, Lee, oh, I'm doing this. I'm like, oh, excuse me. But it's fantastic. It's great to
Yeah,
see.
it is.
Now, how do
Yeah.
you how do you find, is it easy to get around? Like, tell me about the city itself. Are you enjoying like what the city has to offer?
I am enjoying what the city has to offer. My two biggest challenges when I got here were language and geography, which, language, that's a process. I thought I was decent at Spanish because, I being from Southern California, you encounter a
Yeah.
lot of people from Latin America. And, I did okay there. Here, it's like, it's been humbling, but
Uh-huh.
it's a process, and I'm working on that still, and it's going to be a process for a while. As far as geography, I spent the first month or so getting lost on a daily basis, which is not an entirely bad thing because when you're
Hmm.
out wandering aimlessly lost, you encounter a lot of stuff that you weren't looking for, that you didn't expect to see. And that
Like,
is
whoop,
often a
there it
plus.
is.
Yeah, it's like, wow, I had no idea that was there. So, that's how you discover stuff too. So
Yeah.
and I just resigned myself to, okay, I don't know where I'm going. And
And
then,
yeah, and you eventually get there because the way the city is set out, it's like you walk a half an hour, you're probably back where you where you started out from, because nowhere is more than 30-35 minutes walk, not even like
right.
on the bus, but walk away. So
Yeah.
that's pretty good. And you
And
can handle the metro and the bus, like everything is easy to use.
yeah, public transportation is very good here, very efficient and inexpensive. So yeah, that's been great. It's great to get around. There are other ways to get around too. It's funny, when I got here, and I relied so much on Google Maps, to
Yeah.
try to get from point A to point B, but it's like, even with that, it can be challenging. It's like anytime they give you an estimated time, I would say,
Yeah.
okay, I need to triple that, and maybe I'll make it on time.
Exactly. I always
So,
go like it's 10 minutes walk if you're walking in the right direction. Otherwise, it's
mhm,
like, 50-minute walk because you need to find your way around a few times, and all the streets are the same. They're so small and tiny and
yeah,
huge, but
yeah, and street signs are not always present too, which
yeah.
makes it even more
And especially
challenging.
when they change it to like Valenciano instead of Spanish, and you're
Right.
like, is this the
Yeah.
street that I'm looking for? But
Yeah.
but those are fun challenges. And so it's not so
It,
bad, is it? So
yeah,
tell
it
me
is. It's
what a routine day is like for this new retiree in Valencia.
uh, you know, it's become a little more structured because you know, and a period of self-discovery,
Yeah,
decided
yeah.
I needed more structure, because when I first got here, it was like, and I had these blackout shades in the bedroom, and I would wake up, it could be anywhere from 7 o'clock to 11. I had no idea until I looked at my at my watch. But typically, I go to the gym. I actually still do volunteer work for an organization in LA, so that is pretty. That takes up a good chunk of time, so I'm still working, and just on a volunteer basis. And evenings are for socializing, or if I just want to hang out, at home, that's cool too. And but the days are pretty full, and there are just, especially in the summer, there are just a lot of events, free
Yeah,
events, cultural events, and
yeah.
so you know that keeps me busy. So I have pretty full days, sometimes fuller than I want
Then you
them to be.
care to, exactly.
So,
Everybody's always saying retired life is so boring. And then you're like, where did the day go? You just don't even realize
yeah,
it. Now
yeah.
tell me, um, this is a perfect question for you. What do you feel? How has the Black experience been being in Valencia, like compared to the US, for instance, or whatever?
It has been refreshing in that these little uh, things that you have to deal with, just socially, and things that I'm really acutely aware of when I'm in the United States, that kind of disappears. Not that it's perfect, but I'm sure they have their issues. But for me, a primary concern is always personal safety, and Valencia is a very safe town. There have been times when I've been out, and I'm walking
I
back
remember
home.
you left here like super late one night and you walked home all by your lonesome.
Yeah, which is not unusual, and I never feel, physically threatened. Police officers are here, but they're very unobtrusive. You almost don't know they're there. I've never been, stopped or harassed. Just and other little simple things that I've gotten spoiled and take for granted here, that didn't happen in the United States, like hailing a cab at any time of the day. You throw your hand up and a cab will pull up, or you walk up to a cab and they, ask for, are you free? And they will say, yes, come on.
Yeah.
Um, and even basic things like looking for an apartment, I never felt that, race was an issue there either, which it can be in the United States.
Yeah.
It's just, I would go and look at a place, and, there wasn't this, oh, we'll get back to you. It's like, well, so do you
Exactly.
want it or not?
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
like, I'm like, really? Just like that?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Like Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
different, and it takes a while to get used to because you're so conditioned to the way
yeah,
things were.
yeah. And even, I think I mentioned to you before, there have been times when I've been out walking late at night and there'll just be me and maybe a single woman walking, alone, and they don't go out of their way to cross the street or clutch their purse tighter. They just, they don't see me as this threat. So that's really refreshing, just to be, viewed as a
As a
human.
person.
It makes a
Yeah.
big difference. It's good for the psyche, good for the soul,
Yeah.
and like I said,
And
I'm
what,
sure it's not perfect.
especially when you're retired, you really don't need all that stress and all that added
Yeah,
emotion, I guess,
yeah,
it makes life a lot more pleasant.
it really does, and it takes a time. It takes some time to get used to that too, because you develop these defensive habits as a result
Yes.
of your experience, and that,
Yeah.
and it took a while for me to like, yeah, okay, or this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
Now, you live in the center of town, and for anybody listening, and if you're going to check out, if you want to, I'm going to have a YouTube video up within the next few days that has Lee's apartment in it, showing you what the space looks like. And it's a great looking apartment, at least I think so. And
Well, thank you.
it's right in the center of town. So, how did that come about? Because it's getting harder to find places in Valencia. How did you find yours?
Yeah, I was really fortunate because when I got here, I used an expat services group, and they helped me with some of the bureaucracy of just things you have to do just to get all legal and stuff here. So there
Yeah.
was that, and another thing they did was that they helped me find an apartment. So I looked at a few places, and this one I really wanted to live in the center of town because
Mhm.
I was still getting familiar with it, so it was important for me to have access to things. And so, they helped me find this, and helped me go through the process of renting it, which was relatively painless.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah. There's no, for anybody listening, there's no TRW checks or anything like that. It's all like, do you have your paperwork? Do you have your NIE, which is like your legal residency and your padron?
Right.
So the things required are not as intensive, I guess, and especially when you
Yeah,
have that group helping.
yeah, and I don't know if this is typical, but it was my experience was that they do want to see bank statements and
Mm-hmm.
things just to make sure you're financially solvent. And but
Yeah.
once that's done, then it's like you know you're on your way. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it
like,
was.
here you go. When do you want to move in? Tomorrow? Okay. And it's like, it's weird, huh? You don't have to wait till the first of the month or whatever it is. You can start the
Yeah,
very next morning, and it just
yeah,
goes from that date to the end of that, the other date.
right.
Now
So
you
yeah, so that process was pretty, it's pretty painless. So I'm happy. I was happy with that.
now coming from LA that had a high cost of living, what has the cost of living been compared to that? Can you give us a rough idea?
Well, yeah, my apartment is 1,200 euros a month, which is, I guess, kind of sort of on the high end
High,
for
high, high.
for a single person. So, but it's a nice place. But the same place in LA would probably cost me, you know, 3 times that much because
Oh, for sure.
it's a 3 bedroom. Technically, it's more like 2 bedrooms,
Two,
and
two
where
and
I'm
a
speaking
den.
to you now, which I use as an office. So, but it's plenty of space. It's about 90 square meters, which is about 1,000 square feet, I think,
Hmm.
roughly.
Yeah, just
And
under.
so it's plenty of space for me. It's right in the center of town. Have the best of both worlds because it's a lively neighborhood, lots of restaurants, lots of retail and stuff. But the street I live on is it's very quiet, not a lot of foot traffic.
Yeah, it's
So
great. I mean, you're
yeah,
so lucky because I was so like,
mm,
that street is just quiet. And then you come out like 2 seconds later, you're right in the middle. I mean, literally right in the middle of everything. So it was a great
yeah,
find, and it's a great place, and it's a great place to get acclimated to the
yes,
city. So it's
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah.
Now,
And it's
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna
Sorry.
say it's walking distance to so much
Oh yeah,
stuff. You have El Carmen, and
yeah,
which is
the old
it's kind of
town.
a trip, but yeah, and then you you're not far from Musafa or wherever you want to go. I can pretty
Mm,
much walk. I think the
yeah.
farthest I ever walked was getting to your place for the.
I tell them, so we live in the hood. We live, we live like the Google. It's 29 minutes walk from your
Yes,
place to mine, but it's
yes,
like that's the farthest that you could ever think of, unless you go to the City of Arts or something. But I know
yeah,
you were stunned when you realized that there are places in Valencia that actually take that long because your life revolves around the center. But we live where the
right,
regular folk live.
yeah.
So now I know that you recently, you since you've been here, you've traveled to like Rome and Barcelona. Like, what did you think? I'm not even going to compare it to Rome because it's a different country altogether. But
Yeah.
what did you think compared to Barcelona? Did you feel like, okay, I kind of made the right decision, or did you feel like you're missing out on something?
A little bit of both, because Barcelona is a metropolis. It's a big city. That it's beautiful. There's a lot to do there. It's so it is a it's a major city. But I do still feel like I made the right decision because Valencia is the right size. It's big enough that it has all the stuff that you like in a city, but it's small enough that you could get almost everywhere by walking, and it's just easier to navigate. And Barcelona's close enough by train that whenever it's not a big deal for me to
Exactly.
go there, and
They come back
uh,
and
and, and one of the great things about being here and being in Europe generally is that you have so many other great cities that are just an easy plane ride away. Like I
yeah,
had friends who were out, they were visiting Italy, and then it's like, okay, I'll meet you in Rome, and
exactly.
it's, I think the
It's like,
round
oh,
trip
I'm
there was,
sorry, you're gonna drop $25 or 25 euros on a plane ticket, because that's how much
yeah,
it costs.
yeah. I think my round trip airfare was less than 100 euros, which
Yeah.
is amazing.
You can't
So,
even go from Boston to, I don't know, New York for that if you're flying in the US.
oh
So
yeah,
yeah, it kind
it's
of
crazy.
changes your attitude towards like where you can go visit. And Lee,
Oh
I
yeah,
apologize. I realized that we were talking about the cost of living and I kind of segued into something else. So please, please go on with the cost of living. You told
okay.
us the
So my
apartment.
yeah, well, obviously the biggest expense is monthly rent, which is 1,200 euros. Utilities, it's funny. Utilities typically, not in the summer, runs electricity is about 50 to 60 euros. However, in the summer, we had a hot summer, so I was blasting the air conditioner, and that went to like 200 and then 300 euros. But it's come back down in the last month since it's gotten cooler. So I would say on average, electricity for me is about 75 euros a
Okay.
month, and then gas is pretty cheap. That's probably another 40. And then there's just, food, which is, pretty cheap here. I mean, I don't spend a lot on food, and I go out, and even going out, it's unusual to spend more than 20 euros for a dinner, for a nice
Yeah.
dinner. And
Yeah.
if I'm home, it's even cheaper. So,
Exactly.
yeah,
and
so
and that dinner will consist of like like the menu al dia will consist of like a primer,
right.
main course, a dessert, a coffee, so it's pretty good
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah, and you throw in a glass of wine or beer,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's amazing. And so I would say food probably runs totally 150 to 200 a month, if that. It's kind of hard to spend
that's
more
that's
than
gro-
that.
that's not including groceries though, that's going out, right?
Yeah. No, because groceries are, because I will go grocery shopping, which is a whole other story, 3 to 4 times a week, and I typically spend maybe 15 euros. Sometimes it'll get to 20 if I have, staples I need to get. And I had to get used to going to the store more frequently because I don't have a car here. And like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of people don't, the grocery store is a couple of blocks away. So you kind of have to, in America, we
we
are always taught to be efficient and stock up on stuff. And here you just go to the store and, get what you need for the next couple of days, and,
yeah
and you're good. I know the
we
first
go
time,
practically every
one of the
day.
first, Yeah, and one of the first times I went to the grocery store and I'm stocking up on stuff, and you know, as
Like,
I've always done,
are
just
you
out of habit.
expecting? Like, is
Well,
there,
people are looking at me like, what apocalypse is this guy
exactly
preparing for
like,
that we don't know about?
is there a storm coming that we don't know, a Capriya that we don't know
Yeah,
about? You know?
yeah. So eventually, I learned to just go get what I need for a couple of days, and that's plenty. And you just trust that stuff's going to be there the next time you go.
Exactly.
So, so overall, I would say I spend maybe 1,800 bucks a month total, in a typical month, and that includes entertainment and things
Yeah.
like that. And I
And that's
spent more
living
when I
a
first
really
started.
good life, you know?
Yeah, yeah, the quality of life is great, and then it just makes it's just a lot less, and things are relatively stable as far as cost. I mean, when I first got here, uh, I spent more because I didn't come with anything other than what I could fit in the two suitcases, so I had to buy a few things. But now that's kind of leveled off, so things are relatively stable. I know they're experiencing a little inflation, but it's still much less than I would spend in the United States.
Now, do you feel like, you would say to yourself, okay, I'm here and I'm going to stay here? Or do you have like a wandering eye as far as you can see? Because
Uh,
it's been 7 months, a long time. And so
yeah, I feel like I'm going to be here for a while, and a big part of that, to circle back to the social aspect of it, is that I've found a social network here. I've made friends here, and that is really important to me. So that would and I would have to give that up if I wanted to go someplace else. Which is not to say that I wouldn't consider living someplace else, but I think I'm going to be here for the foreseeable future.
well, that's good. We're glad to hear that. No, no, no. Now, would you advise, you came here and you're happy with the decision, would you advise somebody else that is thinking of coming, or is hesitating about making the move? What would your advice be for that person?
Uh, I would simply advise him to consider it, because I would never tell somebody what they should or shouldn't do. But I would definitely encourage them to consider it. And I think a big hurdle, especially when you're brought up in the United States, and you just have a hard time imagining that life could be better someplace else. And turns out it can, and at least for me. So
Yes,
so I would say, dip your toe in, check it out. Just see if you like it, and just don't be close to the possibility of maybe living, here in Valencia or someplace else. Just
exactly.
yeah, definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, find your bliss, because really
Yes,
it's out there somewhere, whether it's here, in Spain, Portugal, Costa
right.
Rica, wherever it is.
Yeah,
But
and
make the attempt.
yeah, and a lot of it for me had to do with the stage of life I'm in. I'm retired. I'm older now, so it's like, okay, if I'm not going to do this now, when am I going to get another opportunity? I just need
Exactly.
to be a little. So moving here uh, without having been here, I mean, that was.
Ballsy.
You know,
No, actually, would
yeah,
you
well,
advise
one,
somebody, would you advise somebody to move here without seeing it like you did? Huh?
uh, yeah, well, I would not discourage them from checking it out. I mean, one of the things I wanted to embrace, at this stage of life, is to be a little less deliberate and a little more impulsive and a little
Also.
more spontaneous and a little braver. So this was, you know, a good example of that. So, and I'm really glad I did, because I can, you know, I, I can talk myself out of anything given enough time and
Of
enough
course.
skepticism. So it's
Yeah.
like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. And when I was hemming and hawing a little bit, and my sister says, "Oh, just go. And if you don't like it, nothing says you have to stay there."
That's,
You
oh my
know?
God, that is the
And
best
I'm like,
advice
"That's
ever.
genius. I never thought of it that way."
Your sister is a genius.
She is. She is.
It's true, because it's not like anybody says, Lee, if you do not like it, I'm sorry, you could have come back home, you could have go anywhere else, you're stuck there. But nobody
Yeah.
says that, it's
No.
all an experiment,
Yeah, it really is. Life is an experiment, and you just gotta, there are just times when you just have to embrace the uncertainty and move forward. So that's what I did, and
Perfect.
I have not regretted it for a minute since I've been here.
Great. I hope it keeps on being like that, but it will. I mean,
Yeah,
we've been in Valencia now 5 years, and I still feel the same as I did the first day. I still get
yeah,
excited about the city, and I still love it. So,
yeah.
and I've
Beautiful.
met a lot of people who have
Hmm.
moved and just said, no, we never visited, but we saw this, or I saw you on YouTube, and they just like, we moved and we've been here. I had a
Yeah.
friend just say the other day, it's like, we came here on a sabbatical for a year, and they just got their
Hmm.
5-year renewal. Like, they stayed for 5 years. They never went back. And they
Yeah, yeah.
so
A
I've
very
heard,
common tale here in
yeah,
Valencia.
it's very true. So I'm glad that
Yeah.
you've made a home and you've settled down here. So this is a nice way to say thank you for being here today. And also, like I said, for everybody here, please check out the Next Bite of Life Expats in Spain channel, and in the next few days, and you can see Lee's apartment and see if it's worth the 1,200 euros that he pays for it.
Yeah.
And also, please subscribe to the channel when you get a chance, okay? um, Anything else you would like to leave with the audience before we sign off?
Uh, no, I would, if anything, it would just, again, to just encourage them to be a little bit adventurous and curious. And, if you have any thoughts about maybe living someplace else, Valencia is a great place. I, I enjoy living here. And even if you don't ultimately decide to be here or to be here permanently, I would certainly encourage people to check it out. You may love it.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Lee. It's been
Thank
wonderful.
you. I
And
enjoyed
thank you,
it.
everyone, for listening. And we'll see you on the next episode, or we'll hear you on the next episode, whichever that would be. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye.